She was the first to call the blue wave back in 2018, almost to the exact seat count. Who is she?
Great to welcome back to the program.
Please welcome Rachel Bitecofer.
Rachel Bitecofer.
She is Rachel Bitecofer.
While she might not look like a terrible person, Rachel Bitecofer, a political scientist and Democratic pollster, has some very interesting beliefs that we're going to examine in this video. And we'll see how these beliefs are shared by a majority of the political elite. But let's start with this first clip of Rachel Bitecofer on Real Time with Bill Maher.
But like psychologically, people don't want to see shit that makes them feel guilty or painful or hurt.
They don't want to see shit they don't agree with.
You have to shove it down their throat, right? You have to make them
shove
watch
it down their
right.
throat.
That's why you have to make them more afraid of other shit, Bill. And we don't do any of the fear stoking, right? So like I'm going to tell people they're coming for your money. They're coming for your kids. They're going to kill your daughter with teenage abortion stuff, right? Because that's the shit that the other side has been fed.
Now, you might think this demented mindset is limited to a few obscure political operatives like Rachel Bitecofer, but as I'm going to show you with these next clips, this worldview is widespread enough amongst the political elite that it dictates the words coming out of the news anchors of the corporate media that many of our less self-aware friends and family continue to allow themselves to be deceived by. For example, Republican Glenn Youngkin recently won in an upset gubernatorial race in Virginia, a state that less than a year ago elected the Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden by more than 10 points. Youngkin won the support of a lot of suburban parents by campaigning against critical race theory and promising that the following would no longer be taught in schools.
And it literally says here, whiteness is a bad deal, and it has a symbol of Satan. And this is the contract that they say whiteness brings, and children are getting this book. And so there is a direct correlation from these ideas to these dangerous principles.
And instead of calling out this racism for what it is, the corporate media instead took the perspective of Rachel Bitecofer.
That's why you have to make them more afraid of other shit, Bill. And we don't do any of the fear stoking, right?
And as a result, the following line of propaganda was unleashed. And as you're watching this, remember that this is real and that millions of people actually believe the words coming out of the mouths of these people.
Glenn Youngkin played the race card for a reason, because he knows it works on certain white voters.
He did stoke white grievance politics to mobilize the Republican base.
The subtext of all this was, we can't let these black and brown people run the country.
I think all the CRT stuff is trumped up dog whistling.
Some of it was dog whistle racism.
The dog whistle messaging that you saw Youngkin engage in during the course of the campaign.
White voters do have anxiety about a changing America, right? That it is blacker, it is browner.
You've got the Republicans yelling like, hey, look, the black and brown folks are coming for us. This is about the fact that a good chunk of voters out there are okay with white supremacy. Let's call a thing a thing.
Yeah, let's call a thing a thing. These so-called white supremacist voters elected the first black lieutenant governor in Virginia's history.
In case you haven't noticed, I am black and I have been black all my life.
Now, if you're wondering like I am, what in God's name is going through the minds of people that put this propaganda out there and expect people to believe it, we can again consult the mind of Rachel Bitecofer.
Democrats talk to the electorate like it cares. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They make an assumption. The whole system's built on a flawed assumption.
And as I insert this break so I don't get copyright struck, watch the reaction of Bill Maher and Rob Reiner to the narcissism that spews from Bitecofer's mouth.
The GOP understands who American public is in terms of civics, and they're not civically smart. They're lazy as fuck, right? It's not just about being busy. It's lazy too, right? And the GOP spoon-feds that shit right into them every day, into their
Let me give you an example of it.
And you have to understand this isn't just a proactive attempt to get stupid and lazy people like you and I to be afraid. It's also a reactive strategy, because if you and I are not afraid of the white supremacists on the right, then we might be incorrectly afraid of the craziness on the left.
They read it every day.
Yeah,
shit
they read
like
nothing
this.
about their fucking crazy, right? So like their crazy is, let's see children get visually inspected to make sure they have a vagina if they want to play on the
But I can't do anything about their crazy.
Yes, we can, because we can talk about it instead of our crazy. I mean, think about it. The complaint is, oh, they're too PC. The other side is turning into a fascist authoritarian party that is literally rigging our elections.
They don't care.
So you
They
have
don't
to
see it
hit
that
that
way.
brand back.
And you can just tell how much of a game it is for them. Oh, well, our side is doing bad, so we have to hit their brand back. There's no acknowledgement that the craziness they're talking about is actually having a negative effect on people, and maybe instead of trying to play a game of how can we get them to focus on their crazy rather than ours, they could maybe actually acknowledge that there is legitimately racist, crazy stuff going on at, for example, Netflix with Colin Kaepernick's brilliant new documentary.
There have been some very popular TV shows starring black people. These shows share archetypal black characters, including social outcasts who assimilate or conform, like Carlton Banks or Steve Urkel.
Wow, you guys have got some real A-list people here.
These characters have come to be known by the term acceptable Negro. The acceptable Negro is a black character who inhabits white characteristics. The acceptable Negro is a white man's creation.
So in the mind of the political elite, it's racist to not want your children to be told that their whiteness is a satanic stain on their psyche. But claiming that black people who are articulate or nerdy or kind of outcasts, well, they're inhabiting white characteristics. Whatever the hell that means, because last I checked, being articulate or being white didn't ascribe anything about your personality or your... I'm getting upset. See, the fear is working. The fear and the anger is working. And if this is all part of the plot, well, then they're doing a good job. But if stupid people like me are upset about this nonsense from Colin Kaepernick and not the white supremacists like Winsome Sears winning in Virginia, well, then we're the racist. And you might think this isn't that big of a deal because at the end of the day, we have freedom of speech and we can say what we want. We can respond to this. I'm doing that with this video. We can listen to whoever. And all of this media control and all of that, it's not really that important. And I would say, perhaps you're right. But then again, maybe that whole freedom of speech idea and the constitutional protection of it, well, maybe that needs a bit of amending.
Let me ask you something, though, Phil. I'm interested, right? Second Amendment. Would you, in a perfect world, maybe like change the wording around in that a little bit?
Absolutely.
So the First Amendment is the exact same thing. You can find a way, if we could, which we can't, amend a constitution, just like with the Second Amendment, you could have a robust society with robust free speech and still disallow.
So you want to amend the First Amendment?
And now I know what you're thinking. Paul, okay, you're going to really end this video on instilling fear that the political elite are going to, shut down news that they don't agree with? Not shut it down, but make it better and impose restrictions on people's freedom of speech? Please. That's ridiculous, right? Right?
And most of the criticism of Fox News is not aimed at shutting it down, which will never happen anyway. It's about making Fox better. If Fox is going to keep transitioning into the 24/7 Tucker channel, then maybe it belongs next to Sci-Fi on your channel lineup, not MSNBC. These need to be nuanced conversations, not edicts, not orders. This is complicated, but harm reduction is possible. This is not ultimately about freedom of speech. It's about freedom of reach.
As every good dictatorial regime knows, when you are explaining to the public why you are destroying their most fundamental rights, at the very least you should make it rhyme. While I don't think this clip from CNN is reason to be afraid, so to speak, it is reason to pay attention and ensure that other people are paying attention, and that is in part what I seek to do on this channel. And it is a small operation, for now, although it won't be forever, because for as demented as these people may seem, I am way worse. And so with that, good luck and Godspeed.